This podcast is brought to you by EnergyX. Are you tired of paying huge rates to the big cloud providers? Are you worried about being booted off a cloud platform if your company doesn't meet their ever-shifting standards? Ready to step up your data security and disaster recovery game? Well, ladies and gentlemen, your new cloud is ready. Introducing xCloud, the scalable, resilient computing cloud that is also actually affordable. It's high-performance compute for half the cost. HPC for HTC. xCloud from Red Team is opening a beta program for new cloud computing customers, and that means you, my friend. The xCloud is powered by the XMDC immersion-cooled modular data center from EnergyX. I've seen this data center in operation, and it is a total game changer. So if you want more information about the beta launch, go to the URL in the description. Type in promo code BETA, B-E-T-A, for 50% off of your first instance. And so the URL is going to be digitalwildcatters.com/EnergyX. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Oil and Gas Service Podcast. I got my buddy Ahmed here with HyBird, right? It was accidentally put in my calendar as HyBird, and I was like, I don't think that's it. I think it's HyBird.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's a cool name. Dude, welcome.
Thanks so much, Jake.
Where are you in from again?
I flew in from London recently,
Oh, wow.
but based between the US, UK, Europe, and Middle East.
How much time do you spend here?
In Houston?
Yeah.
Probably a couple months a year.
Okay. Yeah, you spend a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Have you been in London your entire life?
No, born there. Lived a little bit in Vancouver.
Okay.
Lived a bit in LA as well.
Okay.
So whenever I'm in the US, I tend to stay on the West Coast.
Yeah.
That's where more of my sort of network in the tech ecosystem.
Well, you came at a great time. It's super hot and muggy outside. So especially wearing a suit, I'm sure you're just sweating through that thing. Really quickly, what is HyBird?
So we effectively create unique reality-based digital twins of complex facilities.
Okay.
So we go to an oil terminal, refinery, nuclear power plant, those types of assets. And then we capture the as-is condition of those assets. So we go there, laser scan, take video, and then we generate a 3D reality model. And then you've got the ability to basically use that for operation and maintenance day to day, both in the field and remotely.
Okay. So is the use case mostly more complex facilities like refineries, or is there also applications on like the upstream side, like with like well sites? Yeah.
So I've heard some operators who are keen to test it out on the upstream side. Mm-hmm. From our perspective, we wanted to go to the more complex end of the spectrum, look at the spaces that most solutions are not really a good fit for. Wanted to find, prove ourselves there, right? Prove it in an environment that's tough to prove, because if it works there, it works everywhere.
So what's your backstory? Did you come from oil and gas? You a tech guy who's a globetrotter who's traveling all over the world?
So I'm a mechanical engineer by qualification. So I did that at UCL.
Okay.
Did 4 years of my master's there. I actually met my co-founder on day one of university.
Okay.
So, in the lecture hall, sitting front row, he's sitting next to me. And then from then onwards, we basically did all of our group projects together. We did our master's thesis together. And that's where the idea for HyBird started to form. And so after graduating, I always thought I was going to go into finance. So I went into private equity.
Okay.
I got involved in setting up an office and industrials fund with CBRE in the UK regional.
Yeah.
And then I got board of real estate. Within the same private equity firm, they had an opportunity to start buying affordable private schools in emerging markets, Iraq, Georgia, Bosnia, Nigeria, so on. I got involved there. I mean, it was pretty quick. We went in, it was a distressed sale, bought the assets very cheap, flipped the whole group within sort of 12 to 13 months time. And at that point I was free. And in parallel with that, my co-founder Mo, he was working at a company called Costain. It's a tier 1 engineering company in the UK. And he was basically building up what became one of Europe's largest robotics and digitalization teams. So he's one of two people in that team that ended building that up. And they were deploying robotic systems like crawlers, drones, and so on oil and gas, rail, road, water, wastewater, all critical infrastructure sectors. Mm-hmm. And what he was saying to me all the time was, hey, I've got this 3D model that I've generated using photogrammetry. I've got UT thickness from a crawler. I've got visual data from a drone. How do I can't really use, but the guys on the field can't use this day to day. So there's got to be a better way to do that. You must be able to give those insights and the data to the people who are working in the field. And that's when the idea, so when the PE fund exited the education business, I sat down with Mo and I said, hey Mo, look, there's a UK government competition coming up, and they're looking to fund companies in the robotics and AI space. And so why don't we take what we were doing in our master's thesis and basically expand that to go and focus on building a solution for industrial asset management. When we came up with the idea for what is now our Clarity platform, which takes the 3D data, the reality-based data, and then augments other data types on top of it and so on. And then you can use that in the field. So it's both augmented reality and web-based. That's sort of the shortened version of it. And I can go into much more detail if you like.
So let's address what I would consider to be the elephant in the room. There's a lot of digital twin kind of solutions out there, right? And so you're walking through the challenges that Mo was facing, whether it be then or maybe even now. How do you guys feel like you are differentiating that space and really creating a solution that's not really out there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And in fairness, I think we've been thinking about it since we started off, right? It's been 4.5, 5 years now. But it boils down to two things. One is the fact that we're a reality-based solution, meaning there's no other solution out there that reflects reality in the way that we do. And if I showed you the solution, I would demonstrate it visually for you. But we give the operators the ability to keep their digital twin up to date, right? So it's not a single one-time investment and then you forget about it, and then it starts to deviate from the reality of the asset. We allow you to keep it up to date the entire time, right? So you do them. When something changes, you finish a project, the guys on site can do a video themselves, model gets updated, drawings get updated alongside that. That's one element. So it's truly reality-based. And then the other is the fact that it's a comprehensive CMMS, right? Maintenance management system. It's something that includes all the way from LOTO to permitting to keybox management to all of the really technical elements of managing or doing work on site. We looked at how they're being done, and we looked at how do we take the human factors out of it? How do we make it more streamlined? How do we take the risk out of making potential errors when doing work like that? So we've incorporated, we sort of redesigned the way that operation and maintenance should look on an industrial facility.
So I think you showed it to me on our call a few weeks ago. So kind of spoiler alert, it's actually really cool. You guys got to see it. Walk me through the process, right? So right, you go out there and you're scanning these things. Is it something that you're doing with an iPhone, or there's some people that are doing that? There's some people who have more of like these scanning devices, still pretty simple to use, and you're able to just kind of like walk through and scan. Like how does the scanning process work?
Yeah, so I mean, we made it as sensor agnostic as possible. From mobile phones, you could take your iPhone out there, you could take any mobile phone out there, take video, through to some of the more complicated new age solutions like a NavViz backpack that's doing LiDAR and imagery at the same time, through to the ground-based terrestrial laser scanners as well. So we use a mix of pretty much anything. We've even done some DSLR if you want to go super high resolution on the model. We can take pretty much all of that, all those formats of data.
So do you take all the data, then do you guys yourself compile that into what becomes the 3D model? Is that something that on the visualization side, is that something that you guys built in-house? Is that something that you guys are able to leverage existing technology?
Yeah, so it's a proprietary algorithm we run for getting the raw data into the reality-based digital twin.
Okay.
So we've pretty much engineered the whole stack from ground up, and that's why it's taken quite a while. And there's been many iterations of it. Like, the first, if I go back, I was looking at an old sales pack from a couple of years ago, and I looked at the quality of the model, and I looked at the quality of the platform, And I looked at it now, and I'm like, hey, these are two different companies, right? It's it's almost embarrassing. You cringe a little bit, but that's a good sign.
If it wasn't embarrassing, then you launched too late, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always funny to go back. I keep all of our old sales materials. I keep our old decks. I keep our old everything, notes, just anything. So I was like, I like to go back and reflect and be like, we made a bunch of vlogs and stuff, and we still do. I went back and watched a vlog that we had done in this room, like 4 years ago, and we were kind of just detailing behind the scenes of like what our problems were at the time. And we look back, and it's like, I wish I had those problems, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they're just so small compared to the challenges that we have to deal with today.
Totally right. It's that thing. It's you don't know what you don't know until you start diving deeper into it. And it's been that the whole way building the company. You doesn't matter how close to the problem we thought we were. The more time you spend with operators, the more you realize where the opportunities are.
Yeah.
And so those first few customers, in our case, those first few customers are the ones that really add the most value, right? They're not just customers, they're partners. And you want them to be partners. You want them to be, giving you as much feedback as you can on, hey, it would be great if you could do X. It'd be great if you could do Y. And then me and Mo, we're sitting in those meetings together, and we go back to the office and we're like, hey, look, what if we could sketch out the product to do, these certain things instead? And then surely enough, a couple months later, that feature set is released.
I think you have to have a little bit of blind optimism as an entrepreneur to go out there, and because like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and it's very easy to have the solution that things are easier than they seem, and then you get in the weeds and you're like, oh, this is a much bigger challenge than I thought.
Yeah, and it happens all the time.
So so being reality based, is there some sort of like mechanism of like when things change, or is there like a frequency of people having to go out there and scan things so that things match up? Reality matches up with the models, matches up with the drawings, matches up with the data.
Yeah. So we train the operators up on how to capture video for the remodel to be made.
Okay.
So we train them up, and then they use their mobiles or tablets when they're out in the field, obviously intrinsically safe, depending on what type of facility they're on. And then as soon as the video is done, the model will be updated within a matter of hours.
Okay.
And then the drawings alongside that are updated as well.
Okay. So then once it's all uploaded, what is the main use case? Coming from a guy, I've never been in a position to be an engineer, right? And so I don't use digital twins. I don't use drawings, things like that. And so walk me through, like, what are the use cases? Like, once I have it all in here, how are you making my life simpler?
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, the ability to have all your asset documents, data, and drawings in one place is super powerful, right? Traditionally, they were using companies have got, these are facilities that have been running for 20, 30 plus years. And so you can imagine the mess they have when it comes to looking for information, accurate information, reliable information. They literally have a room, a physical archive, where you're trying to go in there and find this A0, A1 drawing, PNID for a specific process on the facility. And more than often, it takes a long time to find. And then when you find it, it's not even accurate. And then on top of that, they made the problem worse by having, we call it platform fatigue, right? So they're using multiple platforms just to do one job, right? They're logging into some document management system that's got part of the asset documents in there. They're looking at ERP, asset master database, like SAP, for example. They're looking at the physical archive as well, and then they're trying to connect it up with a CMMS that's part online, and then the permitting is done off. You just have sort of 5 or 6 different systems to use when it comes to just doing day-to-day work. And so we give them the ability to produce truly a single source of truth, a single platform to look at and reference when you're doing planning work or executing work in the field. So that's sort of one of the key use cases that that spreads across pretty much everything they do, looking for accurate asset information day to day. Another one is in maintenance management. Mm-hmm. When you're planning the maintenance work, when you're planning the maintenance work, you need to know exactly when is it due, who's done it, was it actually done to the standard it should have been done at, was it on the right component even. There's been cases when you've had the wrong equipment being replaced because there was ambiguity around it. Because think about, they're going from really a database solution where you see equipment name, work order, and you have no context beyond that.
Like, what does it look like? Maybe the size of it, things like that.
Yeah, where is it? What does it look like? You have no idea. Going to, hey, I just log in and I could literally just search for the component and I see exactly where it is. Or if I click on the work order, I can see the entire thing planned out in 3D. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So routines, managing routines and regimes, you can do that completely without any ambiguity in the field as well.
Is there any tie-in to, maybe this is a little far off, but like AR, like for, I don't know, like I know some solutions a few years ago. I don't know if those have gone on to be wildly successful or kind of flop. And I honestly just haven't talked to too many companies. We had Baselines on recently, which is super interesting on the VR side. I'm kind of curious on the their use case. I think is a little bit different.
Yeah,
they're more on the subsurface geological side, but from like a maintenance perspective, particularly with digital twins, is there like any opportunities to do things with AR?
Yeah, we have an AR solution. I mean, we do it on the mobile right now, mobile and tablet. It's because of the computation power. Like you need quite a bit of processing power to make sure the visualization is there, the data is being presented properly, the storage is there as well, because we're you need an offline version if you're doing AR, because sometimes you get underground and there's no connectivity. So you have to think about all of these things before you ship production grade product. So we've kept it to mobile and tablet. So the guys in the field, they do use AR, right? So they pull it out, localizes exactly where they're standing using just the camera, no GPS. And then they're moving around and you can see the components in the field, tap it, see where it is in the drawing. It takes you 2 seconds, literally 2 seconds. And then you can see the work order you're supposed to be doing. Everything is really, right at your fingertips in the field. And that's, for one of our major clients, that was a mandatory one. That was one of the key capabilities that they use to justify the investment, right? And they're saying within a 12-month period on any facility of theirs, they can get a 2x return on investment.
Wow.
And that's one of the key capabilities of that, in saving time and reducing the potential for errors and so on.
Yeah, I always think about AR in the context of like wearing glasses, but I always forget about, hey, you've got a phone with a camera right here and being able to see right through that. Like it's a really low-hanging fruit. It's really cool that you have built that. I don't know if you, side tangent, I don't know if you saw that Google Maps released their like immersive view. Did you see that?
The immersive view on phone?
On the phone, to where like whenever you're looking at two paths that you want to take.
Right.
It does a bird's eye view, like flyover.
Yeah.
And so like if, I don't know, say you're going to go for a bike ride, right? And you want to take the scenic route.
Yeah.
You can go and it'll do a flyover of both. And you're like, oh, well, this is the more scenic route. It's like, it's mind blowing.
That's awesome.
From like, especially coming from, you remember MapQuest back in the day? And everybody would like print off the instructions. You'd have like 7 papers of instructions, and you're like, all right, we need to take a right here.
Oh, dude.
My mom had those. It's like hilarious. Like pre GPS days, obviously.
Yeah. No, I think that the flyover thing is awesome. But the oil and gas equivalent of that is a walk around, right? So you set the route, and you can do it in the solution. You set the route, and you've got observation checkpoints, and you take the scenic route and seeing, is everything exactly how it's supposed to be looking on the site, and you can verify that the folks have gone and done that.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what are the most of the use cases that you guys are working on now? Is it, I know we talked a little bit about upstream. I know we talked a little bit about the refineries. Yeah.
So I'm in Houston right now because of ILTA.
Okay.
You familiar with ILTA?
I don't think so.
The International Liquid Tank Association.
Okay.
So
really niche.
Yes, yeah. super niche. But I mean, pretty much everyone that distributes oil and gas across the entire US and even South America, comes to the ILTA, right? And they're either members
Yeah.
of the ILTA or they just come and check it out. We did it last year as well, and then we've done it this year, and it's been superbly successful. Like really, yesterday I sent out 15 proposals after one day of
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
After one day of
were you guys like showcasing the technology there, or was you just talking?
Yeah. So I was presenting on the Monday.
Okay.
I was presenting with Magellan, Magellan Midstream Partners. It was recently acquired by OneOak. About how we digitally transformed basically one of their facilities in Springfield, Missouri. And, off the back of that, we had a whole heap of interest flying over to the booth as well. And we were doing live AR demos showing the entire workflow from here, here's localizing on this mini tank setup we'd made some makeshift tank that my CTO, brilliant CTO, Mo, had just came up with, and he did it evenings and weekends. And I didn't even know what to expect, but we got there and everyone was really impressed by what was made. So we're doing this AR demo and tagging observations, creating notifications, work orders, planning them in 3D. But people liked it. People liked it a lot.
That's awesome, man. I remember when you showed it to me, I'm like, yeah, it speaks for itself. It's one of those things that I think that once you see it, you're like, light bulbs go off.
Yeah, that's how it should be, right? Good solution should be obvious. It should be intuitive. You should see it and be like, hey, why did this not exist before? And if it exists, why am I not using it today?
So you guys have been doing this for 5 years now? 5 years. Walk me through some of the challenges that you guys have had over the years. Was it building the technology? Was it really honing in on what the exact problem was? Is it the going to market strategy? I mean, it seems like it's practically sells itself. So that seems like it's going well. Yeah, just walk me through that journey a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, I wish it was selling itself from the beginning, right? Like it's never like that. But when you find that product market fit, that's when it really started to ramp. So some of the challenges, I guess there's two types. One is like business challenges, and the other is like product challenges.
Yeah.
But I'll start with product. It's a bit simpler. When we first started building the Clarity solution, we were very focused on visual inspection. Right, we're looking at drones and mobile phones and looking at how can you use that 3D capability to make inspection more efficient. So we built this awesome platform, awesome solution. This is 2019, end of 2019.
Yeah.
Just came out of Techstars, and we picked up a lot of momentum, and we had clients that were using this. They started using this visual inspection solution, and we realized, hey, you know what? They only want to pay between $1,000 to $2,000 per license per year, and then you had all the other existing names in that market who were charging pretty similar to that, but they already had that market share, and we couldn't really compete with them. And frankly, I didn't think the market was big enough. Like when I was doing the math, I was like, it's not big enough. How many drone service providers are going to buy this license from us? And what is the potential of that? And then if you go up one level, so this is what we decided. We said, hey, we don't want to compete with the drone service providers. Let's go up the value chain. Let's go to the tier one contractors.
Yeah. So
we speak to pretty much all of the tier one contractors, and they say, hey, this looks great. Let's tie it into our drone division, our robotics division. And they say, how much does it cost? And you tell them, and they say, okay, we'll pay you somewhere between $10,000 and $30,000 a year for a license. But I mean, the volume of them is just a lot smaller. Yeah. So it's a much smaller market. And we're like, hey.
So you're running the economics again. You're like, I still don't know if this makes sense.
Like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, so where is the real money? The real money is at the operators. And then we start pitching to all the operators, the majors, and the guys, they see it, they're like, hey, this looks awesome. I can see that this is the best inspection solution we've seen. It's the best inspection solution we've seen. But we don't even know what we spend on inspection, right? We don't have budget for inspection. I could barely tell you what we spend on it. And so we're like, me and Mo sit down, we're like, oh, they're like, hey, shit, like no one's going to buy this. Even if they like it, they're not going to buy it because they can't justify the investment.
Yeah.
So I remember saying to Mo, I said, Mo, you know what? We need to go, inspection is great, finding the observation is great. We need to go beyond that. And he's like, what is it? What do you mean? Doing maintenance is a whole different beast. And I'm like, let's just go with it. Let's just go with it, right? Let's just figure it out together. And then, and then COVID happened, and there were some hard times when it was we were trying to complete this pivot from inspection to inspection and maintenance software.
Mhm.
And we were doing this pivot, tightrope pivot. The funding market dried up massively, and that was a really, really scary time. But out of the end of it, I mean, we found an operator that was willing to take a flyer on us, and we started working with them, and they started helping us build that maintenance system. And then we showed it to other companies in the space, and they loved it. And then outside of oil and gas as well, we started finding other industrial operators, and they said, hey, this solves our problems as well. So we just started seeing all of these parallel markets expanding as well with that.
So did you, on the maintenance side, did you have much resistance there outside of obviously COVID and stuff? Was there we're already using, I don't know, what are the solutions Maximo? I think there's a few other things. Or is it we plug the Maximo into HyBird and just make a more complete system?
Yeah, I think at the beginning we're a little naive. We're thinking, hey, you know what? You've got the best. We made the best system out there. You guys should just replace whatever you're using. And then, of course, in reality, they're like, no, we've got 25 years of data in this platform, and we've spent hundreds of $1 million on it. We're not just going to get rid of it for this one that came out, a couple of years ago. So, we said now the way we resolved that was, you have the master database, the old EAM CMMS system that sits as this layer 1 solution. So SAP, whatever it is, Info, Hexagon, whatever. And then we've got Clarity as this smart layer 2 solution.
Mm-hmm.
So effectively, the users interface with Clarity, and then the layer 1 solution is kept up to date behind the scenes. So it's two-way communication, always synchronized.
So I made the exact same sin. I committed the same sin with my first startup here in oil and gas. And so we had built a platform for wells. And so the best way to think about it was like a CRM, but instead of contacts or companies, it's wells. And it was a really, really simple way to see, well level economics, lease level economics, rolling it up to the whole company. And it was built in a way that you really needed to use a lot of these features across multiple departments, right? Which sounds very utopian. It sounds like, oh, it's the perfect solution that's going to encompass all of these workflows, and you're going to have a single, really easy to use thing for all of your data. And then you get into it, then reality sets in, and it's like, wait, we're trying to replace not just a production system, but you're replacing Aries and PhD win, so your type curves. We're trying to replace your accounting system. We're trying to replace the land system. Yeah. And then you get in and you're like, this does not work. This does not work. And so for my second version that I never really got off the ground, we pivoted from replacing everything to integrating everything.
Yeah.
Right. And just through doing this for the last 4.5 years, I've realized it's definitely a common theme of those that play well with others and that can piggyback on a lot of other things where you're not having to rip out systems. Those are the ones that that really, really take off. I think one of the rapid growth stories that I remember would be there's a company called Q Engineering, and they were a Spotfire plugin. So rather than trying to go head to head with something that everybody in the industry already had, they built a plugin to leverage what they already. So you're not selling somebody on the fact that, oh, you need to go and get Spotfire or a competitor. It's you already have it. I'm just going to sell you something to plug in. And they sold pretty rapidly after that. So I think it's a really, really good strategy that you guys are deploying there. How big? Tell me more about the company. How big is the team now? I know you mentioned Mo. I don't know if there's any other co-founders.
No, just the two of us, and then we've got about 30 other people.
30?
Yeah, it's about 30.
Oh man, I didn't realize you guys had so many people.
Yeah, it's about 30 people. So Mo spends most of his time in the Middle East. So he's in Dubai.
Okay.
And then we've got a team in Bosnia, in Sarajevo. And then obviously in the UK as well. And then we've got folks, a few sort of biz dev folks in Africa and in the US as well.
Wow. Where are you seeing out of all those, like where are you seeing the most traction?
That's a good question. So it's interesting. I mean, we see most of the traction in Europe and US for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm just thinking about sectors as well. So probably our cement customer base is about the same size as our oil and gas customer base. And we were never chasing cement. It just happened, right? It just happened. But the two world's biggest cement companies are our clients now.
Oh wow!
One of them signed a 5-year transformation mandate. They did a press release about it maybe last month, a couple months ago. But both of those are headquartered in Europe, and then the oil and gas is a mix of US, UK, Europe, and then in the Middle East and APAC, we're looking at partners who are going to sell it out there for us. So we've just signed 2 mandates with partners that want to distribute it out there.
Is there? I hear all these stories. A lot of friends who are spending a lot more time in the Middle East and selling solutions and stuff. I'm curious from your opinion, is doing business out there significantly different than doing it in the US or Europe?
Yeah, it's definitely different from doing it here. I mean, they have a lot of focus on something called in-country value.
Okay.
Right? Like something they need to have representation. They need to have representation there, and quite often it needs to have a local face on the front of it that's selling the solution. And the other part of that is, reputation is everything, right? So you need someone with a high degree of influence that can actually get you the deals that you want to make in the region there, especially if you're working with big companies.
Yeah, they're definitely. It's funny. So yeah, I've heard all of that, but also the inverse. I've seen companies that are from the Middle East coming to the US and selling, and like their first priority is like, let's get us a white guy in the United States to be like our PD. They're like, we need a liaison to this market, right? So that just kind of clicked for me because I can think of a few examples of that. That's like so funny. So did you guys? I know you mentioned Techstars. You guys did that pretty early on, right?
Yeah, we did it 2019. So I mentioned to you about the UK government. So if I go back a little bit to how the company was funded. So the PE firm that I was working with, and they sold the education business, they wrote our first pre-seed check. And then quite quickly after that, the UK government matched that.
Okay.
And they put us in this robotics and AI track. And effectively, they had this global expert mission, sending UK leaders, 10 UK leaders in robotics and AI, send them to the US as delegates to represent the UK. And in one of the rooms, there was this panel, and it was managing director for Techstars, who was putting together this space program, inaugural space program, first one that they were running. And there was the head of partnerships for NASA JPL. There was, I can't remember the other 2 folks on the panel exactly, but effectively they were putting together this program. And I spoke with Matt Kozlov, MD from Techstars, and he says, hey, I think what you're building is interesting. Let's stay in touch. And then, fast forward a little bit, we ended up, being based out in LA, me and Mo being based out in LA for the best part of 6 months, in this Techstars program. And it was fantastic. It was really eye-opening to see that sort of West Coast mentality around entrepreneurship. And when you're building business in the UK or in Europe, they don't really have the same vibe. Mm-hmm. It's much more transactional there. Whereas what we learned on the West Coast was this concept of give first, right? Help the ones that need your help because you were helped at some point in your journey as well, and do that without expectation. Mm-hmm. So that was really important, that value. And me and Mo, we loved it. We're like, hey, this is like a family, and that was a life-changing experience. Just going through that and building that network out on the West Coast. My co-founder Mo, he's much more risk averse.
Yeah.
When I told him we were going to this space program, Techstars Space program, he's like, hey, why are we going to a space program? Do we need to go there? Like, what's the point? And I was saying, no, we should go, we should do it. He said, no, we shouldn't. I said, dude, this is one of those ones where I'm going to make a recommendation and I'll really stand by it, and you'll thank me later. And he's like, reluctantly goes out there, and then we come back and I say, what do you think? He said, that was the best thing we ever did. That was the best thing we ever did.
What were some of like the key takeaways there?
I just learned so much, really. Like the program is like 3 months, and the first month is, they called it Mental Madness. I think they changed the name now, but they flew out like 200 mentors from around the world, former founders, investors, just advisors, corporate executives as well. Mm-hmm. And you just get to test out your business thinking on them, the business idea on them, and they will challenge you, and you come out at the end of that month with 1,000 data points on feedback from people that have built stuff before, and done it successfully. And then you use that you start to build your own framework for what you need to build a successful company. And off the back of that was when we realized, hey, we need to pivot from inspection to a much more valuable solution. Mm-hmm. So, really thanks to them on that. And then the other parts are like teaching you how to teaching frameworks and tools on how to build startup, and teaching you how to pitch and things like that.
I remember early on in my entrepreneurial journey, I think it was there was a lot of naivety, just thinking, I don't know, just a ton of ambition and just being like, I can do anything. And I remember I applied to like a few incubators and accelerators and stuff with various startups that we had done, and never got into the ones that I wanted to get into, like the Techstars or the Y Combinator or something like that. And I think I discounted the value early on, but I think having done this for the last decade, I think it definitely could have shortened the learning curve, especially just getting access to more founders earlier on. Yeah. I think that when I think of like key moments throughout my career that have like really reshaped the way that I think about certain things, it was like always conversations with like other founders, who've probably done pretty well for themselves, or it was a post-mortem, or it was like, hey, I've done something to avoid this mistake, kind of at all costs, and kind of learning from their challenges there. So, I look back and I think that's one of the few things that I think I would do differently would be to try to participate in something like that and surround yourself. I definitely believe that not all of those programs are created equal. I think that it's just like anything else, universities or whatever, but you've got some that are just really, really, really high caliber, where they're obviously investing heavily into those programs. Techstars being up there for sure. So it's really cool to hear. So after that, I know you got your first, few checks of funding that way. Did you guys just continue to just grow that way, or did you guys go raise more funding? Or
so there was a round that was coming together just at the beginning of just pre-COVID.
Great time.
Really, really great time. I was doing the roadshow, right? New York, Houston, LA, San Francisco, and we recognized, we're talking about integrations. We recognized one of the partners we needed to integrate with was SAP. Mm-hmm. So they were running this like program to help startup enablements, partnership enablement, and I was in Houston at the time with one of my colleagues, and they said SAP COO reached out and he said, "Hey, I'm in Tokyo right now. If you can come and present to us tomorrow or in 2 days' time, we can probably fast track the partnership." I said, "Okay." And I said to my colleague, I said, there's no way in hell I'm going to Tokyo in 2 days' time. And it's one meeting, right? It's 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. And he's like, you're going to get on the plane, right? I said, no way I'm not. He said, you're getting on the plane. And then in the end, we booked the flight. And then, I get on the plane within sort of
it's a long flight too, isn't it?
Yeah. It was Houston to LA, which was about 3 hours. And then LA to Tokyo, which was 11 hours.
Oh,
I think it was rough. 11 or 12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't get any sleep. Landed at 7 a.m. Meeting was at 12. And I was prepping the presentation on the flight. the presentation on the flight, got there at 12. I felt horrific. Anyway, somehow managed to get through it. And then by about 6 p.m., flew back to LA. To LA, yeah. Flew back to LA and then carried on the road show, LA, San Francisco. But when I was in Tokyo, there were 100 confirmed COVID cases in Japan. And I'm sitting,
and this was like really, really early on, right? So that was like a big number.
March 2020, right? Yeah. People didn't know what COVID was really in the rest of the world at this point. And I'm sitting in the airport about to board the plane, and I'm seeing how they're checking if people have any symptoms. And they're asking, right? The flight attendant is asking, saying, do you have any of these symptoms? And everyone's saying, no, I'm fine. And then I'm thinking, when I was in LA, I was like, I need to get back home. I need to get out here. This is going to go far and wide.
Yeah.
And I need to get back home. So I got back to London. We had commitments for the round. Everything looked like it was going smoothly. And then had this lunch meeting in Paris. I went to Paris on the Eurostar, 2 hours back, same day. Then I went to bed that night, and I was wiped out for like 4 weeks.
You got it. You were one of the first ones.
Yeah, and I was calling to test me every day. I'm like, test me. They said, yeah, we're coming.
Yeah.
Test me. Yeah, we're coming. They never came. And I was wiped out for 4 weeks. I had light sensitivity. I couldn't open my laptop. I couldn't do anything. I was like, and I was feeling guilt at the same time. I'm like, I can feel all the momentum I built dissipating.
Yeah.
And then of course I get on a call with the GPs from the fund that made a commit to lead the round, and they say, hey, given the market conditions, we want to see 3, 4, 5 more deals. I'm like, you guys knew we were at the end of runway.
Yeah.
And you're moving the goalposts. And they said, yeah, that is what it is. And so we had to get really creative, really creative to go and keep the team. It was about 10 people at that point in time.
Yeah.
I had to get really creative to keep the 10 people on board. And I mean, it went from bad to worse for like 10 months before everything got solved.
What do you feel like was the number one thing you kind of attributed to the perseverance that you guys had during those 10 months? Because I can relate, man. We've had challenging times, probably more than people would know. You continue to put on your game face. You show up to work. You do things, and you're putting the whole company on your back personally, and
I know,
really going all in. And I don't think a lot of people realize just like how stressful that can be. But it's like when you have that conviction, that, I've got something good here. Like you're staring down the barrel of like, oh, I've got like 4 weeks of cash left. Like you get creative and you just make shit happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's what separates the wheat from the chaff. It's really, I think entrepreneurship is just an endurance race. I think that as long as you just keep getting up, I think you can eventually win. I've had disproportionately more failures than successes at this point, and it's just like you got to be a cockroach, and you just got to be like unkillable. And then I think that you can ultimately get to where you want to be.
Yeah. I agree with that completely. Right, and most of our success is completely, you have a plan, and then the real wins come from things that you never imagined, right? And then you look back and you trace it to how it happened. And like, of course, right? It kind of makes sense then. But your question about, is there anything I put it down to? I mean, same thing. I'm just stubborn.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I
think you have to be.
Yeah.
I think you have to be stubborn whenever you're founding a startup. You got to be like, nah, this is gonna work.
Yeah. I mean, just like, even when it's really tough, I never consider, like, it's just not an option to not exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's never been like, hey, you know what? Maybe it's the best thing to do. It's never even crossed my mind. It's like, I know we're going to find a way to do this. And then you just need everyone else to support, the team support, to go and ride the wave. And that's, but to your point, right? It's a lot of business building. And this was one of the other bits about Techstars, was when you spoke with successful founders, there would be these sessions that they had where they gave you the really raw, crude version of their journey, the bit that's not publicized. And almost every one of them had at least one moment where they should not have existed after that. Every single one had at least one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the journey of building, and that's the hat that the journey you choose to go down. But no, I enjoy it. It's
you have to be a masochist. You have to enjoy the punishment. But it's like there's different kinds of hard. There's like this hard, but I think what would be harder for me, at least the way that I'm wired, would be to hang it up and say I'm gonna go get a job.
Yeah.
Right. Because I would live. I don't know. Like entrepreneurship for me is like it's like oxygen, man, and it's like anytime. Yeah, it's just literally not an option for me just to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like go get a job somewhere, even if it's like the greatest paying job in the world.
Yeah.
I think I just really struggle within the confines. I'm unemployable.
Yeah.
So
I feel you. I'm the same.
so that to me is significantly harder than the hardest thing in entrepreneurship. Of not having that. I don't know, just being the master of your own destiny and being able to create from nothing something that changes the world, makes the world better. I think that's the gratification that we look for as entrepreneurs.
100%. And for me, I've been wanting to build since I was a kid.
Yeah,
building or selling something the entire way. And
I was the same way. I thought that being an inventor was like that, because entrepreneur. I didn't know any business owners. I didn't know any entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
So as a kid, I was always creating things. I was always like inventing stuff, and and so that should have been like an early marker of me wanting to do startup life.
Yeah, that's one of the things they look for, though, right? And VCs, they look for: have you been building for the best part of your life? Have you been looking to go and create value in some way? Do you want to create? And if you've done it historically, then it's a sign that you want to keep on doing it going forward.
Yeah. So your whole story about VCs and them being like, hey, them knowing you've got a certain amount of runway and they're being like, you can only show luck. I can't tell you just how many just VC stories that we have as well, and that I've heard. And I think early on, I feel like there was this. I don't know, like you see so many founders that go on and they become successful, and they're like, I'm gonna go do like the VC thing. That's like the cool thing to do. And that is like I don't want to do. I thought I wanted to do that at one point in time. I don't want to do that because you're just a glorified finance guy, and it's soul sucking, isn't it, to raise money from some of these VCs sometimes. Yeah, especially you're pitching your baby, and especially when you get to somebody who's just like, they just don't get it, they don't understand. You're having to try to convince them that your baby's pretty and that you are going to be successful, and it's just, I don't know. It's hard not to like develop a chip on your shoulder over time or become jaded through the process of talking to hundreds and hundreds of VCs.
Yeah, I think selling product and selling equity are two different modes, right? And honestly, like after that experience, I said, you know what, let's put our heads down. Let's work only with people that we know and we trust, and let's make sure that they're strategically involved, and that I can learn from them and so on. And I'm going to just focus on selling shit, right? I'm just going to focus on revenue. I'm going to focus on winning accounts. It's the
best kind of capital. It's non-dilutive.
Yeah. I mean, but it's also that's the lifeblood of a business, right? I mean, if you don't have revenue, you don't have customers, you don't have people that want your product.
You have a hobby, a very expensive hobby if you don't have revenue.
Yeah. And the other thing that it did was it forced, like running that lean forced us to find a model that was profitable from the beginning, right? It had to work. The pricing had to work. There was none of this, hey, you know what? Sometimes startups are saying they're naming big names and they're saying they're our customers, and then you ask them what's the contract value, and they say 0, right? Or like 10K because it's it's some nominal fee. But that's not what we wanted to build. We wanted to build something where we proved the product market fit worked, the pricing as well as the product market fit worked, and then we want the right capital to go and pour fuel on the flame. And so I've been avoiding as much as I can investor discussions. The only investors we brought on are former founders who've got energy investments or energy experience. So one of them had a really successful exit, sold his company to Accenture here in Houston. And then the other one started a major international oil and gas company, sold it to Brookfield Energy, a private equity firm.
Yeah.
And, big believer in me and the team and the company, and put a check in as well. And I mean, those type of relationships I value a lot. And I will say that there are definitely some VCs who are really value adding, team players, roll up their sleeves, get in the trenches with you. And I'm talking to a couple of them right now, just sort of coincidentally. And they're wanting to get involved and lead the next round that's coming up. Again, I mean, it's not been a planned round; it's just sort of happening. And then there's a customer with a venture capital arm that wants to get involved in that as well. So it's, I think as long as you have the right lead, as long as the right person who's sitting on the board, as long as you have the right partner to go and work with on that front, the sort of rest of it, as long as it's not complacent, difficult or high maintenance capital, it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I think the right investors and partners and backers can really make or break you. To be honest with you, but if you find the right partners, we've got some guys that have supported us over the years and love them to death. And they're a great sounding board. They believe in us. They're just always there to help any way possible. And so find you some guys who really just believe in us as founders, kind of first and foremost, and they just trust our judgment with the business, which is I think really important. There's no playbook for what we do.
That's key.
So you gotta kind of come with an open mind and be creative.
Yeah, absolutely. And similar thing here. I think there's a lot of playbooks for consumer startups, consumer play startups, and even some B2B. But I think when it comes to enterprise, like selling to operators and enterprise businesses, that is hard. Right? That's super hard. And I wish there were more playbooks or more people that could go and say, hey, this is exactly the right thing to do. But I think at some point in time, I'll go back a year or two, we were like figuring it out. We're like, hey, is this the right way to do this? And now it works now, right? The proof is in the pudding. And we get to go in and enjoy that, having spent the time building that framework up ourselves. It's just like that, right? Building enterprise companies, never a smooth job.
Yeah, it's complex to build, it's complex to sell, it's complex to market. Yeah. There's a lot of challenges really across the entire life cycle. On kind of the enterprise side.
100%. And educating, right? Education is the first step of that. Like there are so many stakeholders in that company. Which one has the ability to sign off on it?
Yeah.
And what are their prerequisites to sign that off? And how do you deliver the exact right message to the exact right people at the right time, in the right way, through the right medium? That's what we're doing all the time. Every account we work with, we're doing that all the time. It's like, how do you strategize? How do you strategize? That's what it takes. That's what it takes to do enterprise. And really 80% of biz dev is still sitting on my shoulders. Right? It's still sitting on my shoulders. And I'm looking to go and bring in some sales leadership to come in and support on that front very, very soon.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that founder-led sales is, I don't think it's important. I think it's almost crucial, especially in the early days, because what you're searching for is product market fit, right? And it's very hard to not be in the weeds yourself, rolling up your sleeves, hire somebody to come in from like day one and just like be your salesperson, because what you're doing is you're getting feedback, from the market. You're understanding, what are their challenges. You're seeing the different opportunities. Like you guys have displayed, multiple pivots over the years, where that takes all of your attention and resources for the whole company. And so you need kind of that insight a little bit firsthand. And so I think that's one of the most valuable skills I think you learn as a founder is like, if you've never done sales, like get tooled up on it pretty quickly, because I think that's one of the ways that I think you can be a lot more successful.
Absolutely. I think, it's hard for anyone outside of the business to come in
Yeah.
and start to sell, especially when you're figuring out what you're selling.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, right? It's super tough. And I mean, one of my investor board members, one of investment directors before, was, more sort of corporate mentality, was adamant you should bring a sales guy in early, and we brought one in early, and inevitably it didn't work out, right?
Yeah.
And it got messy and so on, but inevitably it didn't work out. But like, that's just part of it. Like, there was no winning in that setup, and you feel bad for having brought them on and so on. But I think from the outside in, if you haven't done startup before, you can look at a business and say, hey, you just throw salespeople in and money starts, contracts start flying out. But it's not that simple. Like, if you don't understand the business and the product, then you don't know when to time bringing in salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's not just salespeople. I mean, that dynamic nature is the same for, like, some people are built for it, some people are not. Right? From developers through to, even operations folks. Like, the bar is just very high when it comes to working in an early stage startup. Like, if you're deficient in something, everyone will notice it.
Yeah.
And everyone will feel it. And then you have to find some way to address it.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful to say the team now is, fantastic. But it hasn't been without its hiccups and lessons learned on, and how to hire right, how to fire well as well. Yeah.
A lot of challenges, man. Dude, this has been a great conversation. I'm super excited about your tech. We got to get you guys on DW Insight if you're not on there yet. So we'll, you guys can go check that out. Thanks for making the trip. I know you didn't make it just for me, but like, I feel honored that you flew in. Love the conversation. So guys, if you like this, take 2 seconds to leave us a rating and review. Share this with all your friends and your colleagues, and we will catch you guys on the next episode.